Part 11. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 101. Chapter 101 I Want Your Dog's Life. Wang Rui turned around in shock and saw Fan Qingjie walking down the steps step by step. Did King Rui come to congratulate me because the emperor has issued an order to let my grandfather retire and return to his hometown? Or did King Rui come to express his congratulations after learning that the emperor had ordered all the male members of the Hua family to be sent into the army, so he came here to take advantage of the opportunity to add insult to injury? Fan Qingjie paused, and while standing in front of King Rui, he said, "But I think it should be the latter." In the room, Tao Yuxian, who already knew it well, lowered his eyes slightly. Fortunately, the lives of the Hua family were saved. Hua Yuelian listened to Fan Qingjie's words in a daze, and suddenly tears fell like rain. She cried so hard that she couldn't stop crying, but it was because she was happy. And the palms of his hands that were bleeding and fleshy from clenching finally relaxed. In the courtyard, King Rui was stubborn and did not want to admit it. "Fan Qingjie, you are so brave, you actually slandered me." Hua Yulian in the room couldn't stand listening anymore, dared to bite her Yuye. She stood up and stood by the window, raised her hand and pointed at King Rui, asking in a loud voice, "Since my father is safe, why did King Rui fabricate the news that the emperor wanted to stab my father to death? And even helplessly forced my mother to die? Rui, as a majestic prince, what kind of peace of mind does the king have? After all, she was the daughter of the Hua family." Once her momentum came out, even King Rui was forced to take a step back. King Rui couldn't admit it and said with a pinched neck, "No wonder your Hua family is in such a state of decline. It turns out that you are all ungrateful people. I am also worried about the Hua family, so I want you to find a way to keep Hua Yaoding. It's your own life that you have to sacrifice for your own life. What does it have to do with this king?" Hua Yulian glared at King Rui fiercely. She had never seen such a shameless person. On the bed, although Tao Yuxian was equally unwilling, he still acted calmly. "The matter has come to this, and King Rui refuses to admit his guilt. What can the Hua family do? Institutions." Some sound suddenly sounded harshly. I saw Fan Qingjie picking up a long knife that fell on the ground and walking towards King Rui step by step. King Rui was shocked and even more angry. "Here, come quickly." Seeing this, the guards standing on both sides took long swords and tried to rush in front of Fan Qingjie. Bailey Fengming, on the other hand, dodged and landed in front of them much faster than them. With just a few punches and kicks, he knocked all the guards to the ground. Bailey Fengming looked at the guards who fell to the ground and smiled suddenly. Even if he didn't take action, these people probably wouldn't be able to get close to Ayao. He had forgotten that Ayao never fights an unprepared battle. King Rui looked at the guards who fell to the ground and shouted angrily, "You bunch of useless trash, get up, I will get you up." Fan Qingjie said calmly, "They won't get up, just like you." King Rui was stunned. I haven't understood what this meant, but I suddenly felt dizzy. Immediately afterwards, he lay on the ground with his legs weak. Those limp limbs are just delusional, let alone running away. Even if you want to stand up again. King Rui lay on the ground, his anger intensifying. "Fan Qingjie, you are so brave, I am the prince, if you dare to disrespect me, I will kill your whole family." Fan Qingjie stood in front of King Rui and looked down at him. "Do you think I will give you this opportunity?" From the moment she spread the cartilage all over the house before entering the door, she had no intention of letting him go out standing upright. "I don't even intend to waste any more words with such a dying person." King Rui was lying on the ground struggling like crazy, unspeakable fear gradually spreading in his heart. Fan Qingjie held up the long knife in his hand and asked quietly, "Which foot did you use to kick the Hua family?" Prince Rui stared at her in shock and anger. "Fan Qingjie, how dare you, ah dash. Before he finished speaking, he saw a cold light flashing. Blood spurted out, and one of King Rui's legs was cut off alive. King Rui's eyes rolled back in pain, and he almost fainted. Fan Kinjao frowned, his face spattered by blood, and asked in a cold voice, "Which hand did you use to touch the Hua family?" King Rui was so hurt that he lost all reason and cursed loudly, "Fan Kinjao, just wait for me. I will report this matter to Emperor Ming. I want to see if you can bear it, or your Hua family can bear it. Rise." Fan Kinjao said expressionlessly, "Prince Rui is thinking too much." After he finished speaking, he took the knife and slashed at King Rui's arm again. Severe pain struck again, and King Rui's tears and nasal mucus instinctively flowed out from the pain. Fan Kinjao lowered his eyes and looked at the face that was ferocious because of pain, but he didn't feel relieved. It is a blood debt that must be paid with blood. So now is just the beginning. The long knife shimmering with cold light fell down and was lifted up again and again. This goes on over and over again without stopping. Ah! King Rui's screams were more heart-wrenching than the last, and it hurt just to listen to them. The guards who fell to the ground in the yard were dumbfounded and frightened. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, who would have thought that a little girl could have such cruel and vicious methods? Bailey Fengming watched silently and accompanied him silently. It seemed as if all the cruelty and horror were so insignificant compared to the person in front of him. In just one stick of incense, King Rui's legs and feet had been cut off at the roots, leaving only a body with his head still twisting on the ground. The long knife in Fan Kinjao's hand was stained red with blood, and it was even submerged under her feet. By the window, Hua Yuelian's face turned pale as she looked at him, and she really couldn't help but want to rush out to stop him. Prince Rui is the only prince in Ziliang. If he really died in the Hua family. Tao Yuxian on the bed still said calmly, "Don't disturb her, she will know it well." How could a person who could save the Hua family from a desperate situation and save his grandfather, plunge the Hua family into the abyss again? She can trust her little Kinjao. In the courtyard, King Rui lost too much blood and had no strength to shout. Fan Kinjao ordered Ningan to bring his medicine box over. Fan Kinjao quickly mixed the medicine and sprinkled the powder on King Rui's wound. Soon, the bleeding that was still flowing stopped. Prince Rui held on for half his life and sneered, "Are you afraid that I will die now? Fan Kinjao, let me tell you, even if you are afraid now, it is too late. Today's revenge on this king will definitely cost the lives of all of you in the Hua family." Fan Kinjao stood up slowly, "Prince Rui is really forgetful. I said you wouldn't have a chance, but have you forgotten?" King Rui was stunned when he saw Fan Kinjao tinkering with something in the medicine box again. Not long after, Fan Kinjao picked up a small porcelain bottle again and walked over. He leaned over slightly and said softly, "I won't kill you, but you don't need to be too anxious. You will go down there in less than 3 days. We're already in line, so please rest assured, King Rui, no matter if it's 1 day earlier or 1 day later, I'll decide your fate." After finishing his words, Fan Kinjao opened Prince Rui's mouth and poured everything in the medicine bottle into it. King Rui's panic had reached its limit. He kept trying to spit out what was in his mouth, but no matter how hard he struggled, it was all in vain in front of Fan Kinjao at this moment. Soon, King Rui's consciousness began to lose consciousness, and even his head was muddy. He has forgotten who he is and why he is here. His mouth opened in an arc uncontrollably, but he was clearly laughing, but the sound was scarier than a ghost's cry. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 102. Chapter 102, Killing a chicken to scare the monkeys will bring peace to no one. King Rui is confused. But the guards lying on the ground were all as clear as a mirror. They watched helplessly as the young lady from the Hua family opened the medicine box again, sutured the prince's broken hands and feet bit by bit, and then applied a layer of white liquid on the wound. Medicinal powder. After applying the medicinal powder evenly, they were just completely shocked. The sutured wound disappeared just like that. Hua Yuelian, who had been standing by the window, thought that Yu Yair had stopped, so she withdrew her gaze in relief. But she didn't know that Fan Qingjiao's eyes were still cold and cold. How could she let someone off the Hua family off so easily? Fan Qingjiao stood up and walked to Bailey Fengming and asked softly, "How did you get here?" Bailey Fengming smiled and did not answer, but asked, "What do you want?" Fan Qingjiao glanced at the unclear-looking King Rui and the guards scattered all over the place. "Send King Rui to where he came from. 3 days is enough to kill chickens and scare monkeys. As for the others, kill them. Once you do it, it must be done cleanly. She must never let the Hua family get involved in a storm again." Of course, Fan Qingjiao didn't want to hide anything from Bailey Fengming. That's how she is. There are only pros and cons, not kindness. There was no trace of shock in Bailey Fengming's eyes, but instead, a hint of understanding flashed across his eyes. "Set up the family, and I will take care of the rest." He liked to appreciate her more, because he knew that this was what she should be like. Having enough means and courage, as long as you take action, you will definitely be killed. Fan Qingjiao didn't expect that he could accept everything about him calmly, and his cold eyes were trembling. Bailey Fengming walked to King Rui, picked up the confused King Rui, and glanced coldly at the guards lying on the ground. The guards knew that all of them together were no match for this young man, and they did not dare to resist at all, so they had no choice but to follow him and leave. After leaving Hua's house, the guards followed Bailey Fengming into a remote alley. They did not hear what Fan Qingjiao said just now, and they were all lucky that they might still survive. Suddenly, a gust of cool wind hit my face, and I saw a figure flashing in front of me. By the time the guards came to their senses again, they all fell to the ground. Holding their bleeding necks, they struggled to look up at the young man whose white robe was not stained with a drop of blood. Only then did they realize that this young man was far more deadly than the young lady from the Hua family. And the presence of danger. Indifferent, ruthless, leaving no room for error. That night, King Rui, who had been missing for a whole day, finally appeared at the door of Prince Rui's mansion. Everyone in the mansion was cheering thankfully, but when they carried Prince Rui into the mansion, they discovered that Prince Rui's eyes were blurred and he was delirious. He was talking nonsense and kept saying, "Don't come here, don't come here, don't come here, don't come here, kill me." Princess Rui, who was always arrogant and domineering, fainted from fright. The only son of King Rui, Crown Prince Xiaoqiu, was also frightened and quickly called a doctor for diagnosis and treatment. No matter how hard the doctor diagnosed and treated him, he couldn't find anything. Prince Xiaoqiu kicked the doctor down and became furious. "Look again. Find all the officials in the city for me." For a time, all the officials in the main city were forcibly brought into Prince Rui's mansion. It's just that no matter how many doctors check it, and how many doctors diagnose and treat it, they still can't find anything wrong. King Rui was still lying on the bed with his eyes wide open, shouting crazily, "Someone wants to kill me, come, come quickly. Prime Minister Fan, concubine Yu, save me." That night, the whole residence of Prince Rui was so noisy that he could not even close his eyes. Unknown to Fan Zixiu, he was in a rare good mood and asked his son to go to Tongfu Tower in person to order some delicious meals for him to celebrate. As a result, the meal was still not eaten, and the news that King Rui was crazy for no reason reached his ears. Others did not know where King Rui had gone, but he did. It was precisely this that made him even more shocked and frightened. After so many years, he finally waited until the Hua family capsized, but now he was told that the Hua family was still there? And his methods are even more vicious than before. Even King Rui dared to take action. When I thought about myself standing opposite Hua's house, I was so scared that my legs began to tremble. The more I thought about it, the paler my face turned, and my chest started to feel tight. Fan Yurong, who was sitting across from him and was still eating and drinking, didn't know what was going on. He just saw his father falling under the table little by little. Boom dash. With a muffled sound, Fan Zixia was so frightened that he fainted. Fan Yurong quickly shouted for someone, "Come here, come quickly, and find the doctor." Zy Lian entered the door impatiently and looked at his father-in-law lying on the ground. He was not nervous at all. Instead, he was calculating with Fan Yurong, "Master, we don't have much money in the house this month. If we see the doctor again, I'm afraid I won't make it through the end of the month." Fan Yurong didn't expect Zy Lian to be in the mood to calculate money at this time, and immediately yelled, "You vicious woman, why did I blindly fall in love with you in the first place? In the past, when Yu Lian was still here, I respected my father. You take great care of me. If you look at me again, you will know that money is money." Zy Lian was in a rare good mood and didn't bother to argue with him. She just smiled and said, "What's the use of knowing she's better now? No matter how nice she is to you, didn't you still carry her on your back and climb into my bed?" Fan Yurong's pain was immediately touched upon, and he even cursed, "If my father hadn't found a way to send Fan Swinning to stay with Princess Yunyu, he might have been taught what he would be like." Look at Fan Yurong. Qinjiao was conferred the title of County Lord by the Emperor at a young age, even with the title. Zy Lian was still immersed in the joy of the fall of the Hua family, but now that he was told this, he was completely confused. That little Fan Qinjiao actually became the county boss. Seeing Fan Yurong's proud face, she was filled with jealousy. Zy Lian couldn't help but rushed over and fought with Fan Yurong. The Fan family can't keep quiet, and there is no peace in Yuya Palace. Concubine Yu coldly dropped the spoon in her hand when she heard the news that King Rui had gone crazy for no reason. She was shocked and even more hurt. Fan Zixia was obviously unable to do what she wanted during this period. She had already made up her mind to promote King Rui. But now she is told that King Rui is crazy. Although the emperor did not conduct a thorough investigation into the Yuzhu incident because he was concerned about the third prince's injury, all the officials involved were questioned and executed. She has already lost her left arm, and now her right arm, King Rui, has been cut off one after another. Concubine Yu was so angry that she ran away in Yu Palace. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 103. Chapter 103. The backbone of the family. Bailey Rongs, who was still recovering from his illness on the bed, was in a good mood. As long as the Hua family is still there, Fan Qinjiao will still be there. When he thought of that wonderful man, he didn't even feel the pain in his chest. Looking at the gloomy mother-in-law, Bailey Rongs persuaded softly, "Even if the Hua family is still alive, what kind of trouble will it cause? If the mother-in-law is really worried, it is better to take this opportunity to show some respect to the Hua family. Well, let the Hua family be grateful to the mother-in-law, so that even if the Hua family can really turn around, they may become my staff." Concubine Yu frowned, looked at her son and said sternly, "Since you bumped into that sword, it is impossible for the Hua family and you to do anything. Moreover, the Hua family is now a guilty minister, and I will never do it. I am willing to bow my head and show my kindness." This time King Rui followed her order and went to the Hua family, but the Hua family drove King Rui crazy. Whose face is this slapping? She wanted to tear off a piece of flesh from such a bold Hua family to satisfy her hatred. Bailey Rongs was silent for a moment, and then asked tentatively, "What if, when I reach the right age, my son marries a girl from the Hua family as his concubine?" After hearing this, Concubine Yu stood up from her chair and angrily said, I have made up my mind about choosing a concubine. Don't even think about the girls from the Hua family. Especially that Fan Qinjiao. It is true that Fan Qinjiao is capable, but it is precisely because of this that she cannot agree. Her daughter-in-law must listen to her so that she can continue to plan for her son's future. Bailey Rongs didn't expect his mother-in-law to refuse so cleanly and decisively. He felt depressed and uncomfortable in his heart, so he simply turned his head and closed his eyes. Concubine Yu has a terrible headache now and has no time to pay attention to her son's temper. Although she didn't know exactly who attacked King Rui, she was certain that this person must be from the Hua family. The fatal thing is that she secretly asked King Rui to go to Hua's house. If this matter breaks out, it will be impossible to explain why King Rui appears in Hua's house in the first place. The more Concubine Yu thought about it, the more headache she got, and her eyes gradually became more sinister. The matter of King Rui must not be let go. If she swallows this mute, wouldn't it mean that the Hua family is allowed to run wild? After thinking about it, Concubine Yu looked at Aunt Ying next to her and said, Go to Prince Rui's mansion and tell me that I am worried about Prince Rui's health and ask Prince Xiao to come and sit with you. The night is getting darker. The lights in the main courtyard of the Hua family have been extinguished. The lanterns in Minjiuiwen were also extinguished, but the candles in the room were always lit. Mother Su quietly opened the curtain and walked in. Little miss, the old lady and the master have already rested. Fan Qinjiao was busy preparing the medicinal materials in his hands. Did Grandma notice something? The master was a little suspicious when he came back, but the old lady dismissed him with a few words. Fan Qinjiao nodded, then took all the medicinal materials and went to the west wing. The room was filled with medicinal gas, and Ningtian and Lanja were lying on the bed and soft couch respectively. Although both people had bandaged their wounds, there was still blood slowly seeping out. Ninghan was running back and forth to take care of the two of them, while Hua Yuelian, who was not sleepy, was cooking medicine on the side. Hua Yuelian and Fan Qinjiao have lived outside for so many years, and they don't have such a rigid view of master and servant. Besides, the people in Minjiao courtyard have always had a good relationship with her, and today they almost died tragically on the spot to protect her and her mother. She didn't treat them as outsiders, so now she has to do her part. Fan Qinjiao knew what his mother was thinking and didn't ask too much. He walked to Ningtian's bed and sat down. After putting down the bed curtain, he unbuttoned her clothes. The soft cloth that had just been bandaged had already been soaked with blood. Fan Qinjiao slowly took off the white cloth and saw the criss-crossing wounds on Ningtian's back again. Fan Qinjiao had already seen Ningtian's wounds, but even though he was prepared, his heart still didn't hurt. The same is true, and she will regret it. I regret that I should have slashed King Rui a few more times. Taking out the silver needle and catgut, Fan Qinjiao collected his thoughts and said softly, It won't work without sewing, so bear with it. Ningtian nodded silently. Fan Qinjiao sprinkled the prepared anesthetic on the hideous wound, and then quickly pinched the wound behind Ningtian, quickly pierced it with a silver needle, and then passed the catgut through it and tightened it. There were too many wounds on Ningtian's back. No matter how fast she moved, it still took half an hour. After finishing everything, Fan Qinjiao looked at Ningtian and realized that the girl was crying so hard that she was biting her pillow and would rather die than make a sound. In my memory, when Ningtian was learning martial arts from his family, he never shed a single tear even if he fell or bumped. Fan Qinjiao stood up and squatted in front of Ningtian. His voice was very soft, Are you afraid? Ningtian bit her pillow and shook her head. After a long while, she said, Miss, am I useless? It turns out that she blamed herself. Fan Qinjiao's heart ached again, densely. He slowly raised his hand and touched Ningtian's tear-stained cheek, but he smiled, You are very powerful as Lanja. If it weren't for you today, the Hua family would really be gone. Ningtian, there is no need to blame yourself, and don't be afraid of not being strong enough. We will become stronger together. This road is full of bumps and thorns, but we have promised to advance and retreat together, and share weal and woe, right? Ningtian cried again, crying heartbreakingly but not forgetting to nod crazily. Even Ninghan, who was standing aside, started crying. They must become stronger, otherwise they will all be sorry for such a good young lady. Fan Kinjao touched Ningtian's head again, and then said to Ninggan, wipe your tears quickly. I'm afraid mother's medicine is better. Send it to Aunt He quietly. Don't disturb grandma and grandfather. Ninggan hurriedly wiped her tears, choked and went to deliver the medicine. The Hua family was in such a commotion today that it was not until the end that everyone saw Grandma He in the kitchen at the back. It turned out that Grandma He, who was suffering, heard the noise in the yard and wanted to get up in a hurry, but immediately passed out. Fan Kinjao stood up again and walked to Lanja's soft couch and squatted down. Compared to Ningtian, his injuries were more serious, even the right leg bone was exposed. Lanja didn't cry while the lady was treating his wounds. He just remained silent for a long time before stubbornly speaking, I will become stronger, even stronger. Fan Kinjao smiled and nodded, of course, you are all my favorites, so naturally you are the best. The originally dull atmosphere in the room suddenly became alive, as if everyone had grown up from sadness. Although they were still crying, their eyes were filled with tenacious and determined light. Hua Yuelian was really surprised as she sat in it and felt this change. No wonder my mother has always believed in Yu Yaer so firmly, and even my father left the Hua family to Yu Yaer. It turned out that they had long seen the spirit of a master in Yu Yaer Shang. So now, Fan Kinjao is the backbone of the entire Hua family. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 104. Chapter 104. Master, I would like to ask my disciple to pay homage. When Ji Hongliao was brought in by Nani Su, he saw Fan Kinjao still busy. He did not bother and sat aside first. Looking at the thin and busy figure, I sighed with emotion. Who would have thought that such a thin girl could carry the Hua family when the wind and rain hit? Even if you see it with your own eyes, it is really hard to believe. I have to say that the things contained in this little girl's body are really too strong. It's a pity that I have such an ignorant grandmother. Hua Yuelian knew Ji Hongliao, so she quickly gave him a cup of tea herself. Uncle Ji, drink tea. Ji Hongliao, who was feeling regretful, glanced at it and said, your mother is just an old person who doesn't practice medicine. She doesn't want to let such a good seedling go to the medical hall to gain experience, and insists on hiding it at home. I really plan to do it. Will you be satisfied if you can make a small one? He is also related to the Hua family. His master is the old man of the Tao family. It is said that he and Tao Yuxian are also brothers and sisters. However, two people who were handed over by the same master have had constant differences since childhood. One likes to be exposed to all kinds of new medicine, while the other is stubborn and only continues the Tao family's medical skills. When the old man of the Tao family passed away, he really looked down upon Tao Yuxian's stubborn moral character, so he naturally packed up and left. Hua Yulian. She was not very good at dealing with others, so she found an excuse to go to bed. Ji Hongliao didn't care either, and continued to slander Tao Yuxian while drinking tea. Fan Kinjao finished what she was doing, braced herself up, walked over, and saluted respectfully. However, before she could say hello, she looked at Ji Hongliao's eyes and raised them up little by little. Fan Kinjao. In my impression, the judge from the Central Disciplinary Court seems to have a good temper. Ji Hongliao looked at Fan Kinjao's perfunctory white cloth on his forehead, and his face turned dark. How could he care about his usual pretense? Press Fan Kinjao and start to remove the white cloth and apply medicine. Fan Kinjao then remembered that in order not to worry her mother, She deliberately covered the wound and said it was a minor injury, but now she was caught red-handed by the Ji Yuan. I have to say that you girl seems to be quite sensible. Why are you so careless about things that happen to you? That old and careless grandmother used to eat only the meat when eating. Look at you again. You are so careless. Back then, I told you about your old and uncultivated Fang people, but she still didn't believe it. Look at how good your Fang people are now. They are all about to become fools. Amid such fleeting thoughts, Fan Qinjiao thought that the purpose of the Ji Yuan judges coming here today was to scold people. In order to keep the roof above her head, she had no choice but to say, I was so busy that I forgot. Ji Hongliao looked at the injured people lying around and remained silent. At a young age, I knew how to think of others, but I didn't know how much hardship I suffered. After taking care of the wound on his forehead, Ji Hongliao also calmed down and said, the queen wants you to move to the rewarded mansion with peace of mind. It is her dowry and has nothing to do with the emperor. Fan Qinjiao did not expect that Queen Zhen 11 would even think of this. It would be a lie to say that she was not moved. She just paused and said, now the Hua family is still a criminal, and I'm just afraid that moving there will cause criticism. Ji Hongliao snorted, you are too young to worry about things blindly. The queen has said that since she asked you to move over, she will have a way to stop others' mouths. Grandfather is now being stripped of his official position, and the Hua family will definitely no longer be able to live in the general residence. I have to say that this reward from the queen really solved a big problem for her. Fan Qinjiao silently wrote down this sentiment. In that case, I would like to ask the judge to help me say thank you to the queen. The Hua family will not always be defeated. Even if she carries it on her own, she will carry the Hua family up again. So one day, she will definitely return this love to the queen with her own hands. Ji Hongliao nodded. He knew how to repay kindness. As if he had thought of something, he took out a few more bottles of ointment from the medicine box. His Royal Highness specially asked me to bring it to you. Just apply it without worry. I have checked it. Fan Qinjiao pressed, not feeling the palpitations that came. He nodded and said, thank you, master, for your hard work. Ji Hongliao agreed, got up and walked out to the door. Suddenly he realized something, turned around and looked at Fan Qinjiao, who was standing straight on the spot, and asked in disbelief, what did you just call me? Fan Qinjiao's eyes were firm and unchanging, master. Ji Hongliao. It was really a big pie falling from the sky, which made him feel a little dizzy. In order to win over this apprentice, he felt that he had exhausted all his brains. As a result, the prototype was revealed just after one of them was out of control. The fierce look on his face meant that he was scared and thought that the idea of accepting a disciple was destined to go to waste. You don't regret it? Fan Qinjiao smiled. Why do you regret it? The Hua family is in such a state of decline that even the officials who used to have good relations with the grandfather are afraid of it. However, both the empress and the magistrate of the Ji Yuan remain the same as before. If she continues to be indifferent, she will really not be worthy of being a human being. Since there is no shortage of icing on the cake in this world, it is particularly precious to provide help when it is timely. She has always known that the Ji Yuan judge is the Queen Zhengzi's person, so her apprenticeship can be regarded as siding with the Queen Zhengzi. Furthermore, Ji Yuanjing has been passionate about medical skills all his life and has no wife or children. He is afraid that he will not even have anyone around him when he gets old. Thinking of this, Fan Qinjiao slowly knelt on the ground and said, Master, please bow to me, disciple. Ji Hongliao, who had had a bad temper all his life, had hot eyes. He hurriedly walked over and pulled him up. Damn girl, in revenge for the scolding I just gave you, don't you have to watch me cry to be happy? Fan Qinjiao smiled and said, Master is the best no matter what he looks like. Ji Hongliao. Smelly girl, she does have a mouth that can coax people. Ji Hongliao's apprentice, Ji Hongliao, was like something. He pulled Fan Kinjao and thought about it for a long time before reluctantly leaving the house. Ning Han, who had been watching from outside, finally left when he saw the judge, and quickly urged the young lady to rest. Fan Kinjao was really tired, so he sloppily applied medicine on his inner thighs and lay down on the bed. But there were too many things on my mind, which made it hard to fall asleep for a long time. Since Bailey Fengming asked Ji Yuan to deliver the medicine, it proved that he had returned to the palace, but there was no movement at the palace, which showed that the emperor was unwilling to investigate the matter in Yuzhu anymore. When Bailey Rongs was injured, it happened that Yuzhu was victorious. This can only show that Bailey Rongs' injury is fake, and that he does not want the emperor to investigate further. The emperor, who had long been wary of the Hua family, naturally followed the trend and took advantage of it to suppress them. What a happy concubine! What a Bailey Rongs! What a king! Originally, she did not intend to take sides, because she preferred a dull knife to cut meat rather than a sharp knife to cut through messes. But now she has to take sides. Even if she has nothing to do with Bailey Fengming, she must personally put Bailey Fengming in that position. In this way, she can stand opposite concubine Yu and Bailey Rongs as soon as possible. In this way, she can let the Hua family stand up in the court again. Thinking vaguely, Fan Kinjao fell asleep unknowingly. But she hadn't slept for long when she heard Ninggan's urgent voice ringing in her ears. "Miss, what's wrong? There are a lot of officials coming to the door of the house." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 105. Chapter 105. I am still responsible for this family. Fan Kinjao felt nervous, fearing that those people were here to his grandfather out of the main city. She thought that this day would come, but she didn't expect it to be so soon. They had just been stripped of their official positions, and now they could not wait to be sent out of the main city. The emperor was still wary of the Hua family. Nanny Su seemed to hear the noise and walked in a panic. "Little miss, what happened?" Fan Kinjao looked at the two people in front of him and made arrangements calmly. "Ninggan, you go to Qingnanzai now and let Peng Jing leave some circulating silver. 50 taels of it will be exchanged for broken silver, and the rest will discounted into cash notes." Ninggan was stunned for a moment. "Miss, I'm afraid no bank is open at this time." "Then knock it open and tell them to give them 10 taels if they give it 100 taels. Ninggan nodded and ran away in a hurry. Fan Kinjao looked at Nanny Su again. "Go and wake up Ningtian and Lanja first, then go to the main courtyard and wake up Nanny He first. Autumn is about to come, and there is no need to pick up the summer clothes now. Pick some emergency winter clothes and put them away, separate those for grandpa and grandma, and then find a more reliable groom and ask him to wait at the door." "Little miss, why is there still the old ladies?" Fan Kinjao's eyes darkened, but he didn't have time to explain. "Just do as I told you." When Fan Kinjao walked out of the door, Hua Yuelian was also startled. It wasn't until she saw her crescent moon that her heart finally settled. "Crescent moon, what's going on outside?" Fan Kinjao took a deep breath and walked over, holding his mother's arm. "Grandma and grandma are leaving. Mother, please come with me to see them off." Hua Yuelian's tears suddenly flowed out. How could it be so fast? Fan Kinjao's heart was also filled with intense pain. But she knew better that some things had to be faced. Rather than letting the emperor keep an eye on the Hua family, it would be a bad thing for her grandfather to leave the main city. The sky was dim and bright, and the door of Hua's house was full of officials. By the time Fan Kinjao helped his mother come over, he saw his grandfather, accompanied by his grandmother, already standing upright at the door. Fan Kinjao first walked up to the leading official, took out a bag of broken silver from his arms and handed it over. "Please give the Hua family some time to prepare." The leading officer became frightened when he saw Hua Yaoding, who was standing upright and full of murderous aura, and naturally he didn't want to break his face. "Mr. Qingping County, You are polite, but please hurry up. We have to act as instructed. After accepting Fan Kinjao's money, he took a few steps back with the officials behind him and waited quietly. Aside. Fan Kinjao turned around and entered Hua's house again, only to see his mother holding her grandmother's hand and crying. Mother, why are you leaving too? Tao Yuxian held her daughter's hand and sighed reluctantly. The Hua family still has Xiao Kinjao taking care of me, and I feel at ease. On the contrary, how can I feel at ease when your father is alone in the countryside? Regarding the matter of King Rui, it is obvious that there are still people in the palace who cannot tolerate her. In this case, it would be better for her to stay away from right and wrong. Although she is far away, it is always better than being separated by yin and yang. Fan Kinjao had already known what his grandmother was thinking, but now that he saw it, he still felt extremely uncomfortable. A big hand was covering the top of her head. Hands full of thick calluses are full of reluctance and love. Fan Kinjao had a lump in his throat, and forced himself to raise his head and look at the people around him. It's always not peaceful outside the main city. Let Ningtian and Lanja stay with their grandfather and grandmother for a while. By the way, let them learn some skills from their grandfather. Ningtian and Lanja, who were still covered in injuries, took a step forward at the same time and knelt in front of Fan Kinjao. Don't worry, miss, we will follow the master and the old lady well and not let the miss down. Fan Kinjao nodded. Get up and stay with my grandfather and grandmother. These two people died for her in their last life. She is reluctant to give up, but she cannot give up. Since they want to move forward with her, they must grow up and become stronger. And my grandfather, who has been fighting on the battlefield all his life, is the best master. Hua Yaoding also felt very heavy in her heart. His daughter is innocent at this age, but look at his little Kinjao. Sensible, restrained, mature and steady. He really felt that his life had been in vain because he had tortured his granddaughter so wisely. Xiao Kinjao, it's my grandfather who owes you. Fan Kinjao took her grandfather's hand coquettishly, with a faint smile on her face. Grandpa is the best grandpa in the world, and Kinjao loves grandpa the most. How could Hua Yaoding not know that this was his little Kinjao trying to please him again? Suppressing the soreness rolling in his heart, he leaned down slightly and said again, your grandmother's box is managed by your mother. There are some death deeds of shopkeepers there, and there is also an ancestral seal of the Tao family. Remember, just put it away. Tao Yuxian happened to come over, and after hearing this, he whispered, our ancestors have always said that the seal is the Tao family's medical code, but no one has been able to decipher and understand it for so many years. It is rumored that the Tao family's medical code records the secret of eternal life. If it were to reappear, I'm afraid there would be another storm. Fan Kinjao nodded and wrote it down carefully. Tao Yuxian felt terrible pain in his heart when he looked at his sensible granddaughter. No matter how much I want to say, there is still a time when I have to leave. In the yard, Aunt Sue and Aunt He were still packing their things, but they could pack it up smoothly despite Fan Kinjao's instructions in advance. Seeing that the time is almost up, all the things in the car have been packed away. Hua Yuelian was crying so much that she couldn't stand anymore, so she could only rely on Nanny Sue to support her. Fan Kinjao carefully helped his grandfather and grandmother into the carriage. When the two elders sat firmly, she suddenly knelt on the ground. I hope my grandma and grandma will take care of themselves. I don't need to worry about the Hua family. In the carriage, Tao Yuxian's chest was shaking violently, and he couldn't help but cover his mouth. Hua Yaoding quickly got up and got out of the car to pull Fan Kinjao away. Just at this time, Ninghan ran back, holding a small package in her hand. Fan Kinjao took advantage of the situation and stood up first, took the package and stuffed it into his grandfather's hand. There will be strong winds and waves, and sails will sail across the sea. Only by keeping a low profile and biding time can we accumulate wealth and gain. Grandpa, don't worry, the Hua family will definitely make a comeback. Hua Yaoding's eyes were hot, and her hands holding the parcel were trembling. This is the daughter of his Hua family. Fan Qinjiao turned around again and walked up to the leading official. Feng Shui is changing, and no one knows what the future will be like. Please take good care of my grandfather and grandpa along the way. In the future, if you need me, please speak up, that is. A silver note worth 10,000 taels was stuffed into the sleeve of the leading officer as he finished speaking. The leading official did not expect that a little girl could be so transparent. No wonder he asked the emperor to make the county head. He is not stupid. The Hua family has been demoted, but the family has not been demolished. Just look at the huge amount of money in his sleeves. Don't worry, Lord Qingping the official knows what he's doing. He will definitely take good care of the two elders of the Hua family along the way. Fan Qinjiao nodded, watching the carriage curtain fall. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 more times. In the last life, the Hua family died because of her. In this life, she will carry the Hua family up even if she has to carry it. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 106. Chapter 106. No need to give him face. After seeing off my grandfather and grandmother, the sun also rose. Fan Qinjiao knew that the emperor was so eager to drive away her grandfather, and was afraid that it would be an eyesore to everything in the Hua family, so as soon as she returned to the house, she called all the servants over. We will be moving from here in a moment. We will give you half an hour to pack your things. Remember not to take anything that is too conspicuous. If you want to take small items, hide them in the package. Good things don't go out, but bad things spread thousands of miles. I'm afraid that as soon as I leave the house, there will be people watching. Although the Hua family was not ransacked, it was still dangling under the claws of a tiger, so it was always better to be careful. After receiving the order, people hurried into the yard to pack their things. Hua Yuelian came over uneasily. After all, this is the Hua family's century-old heritage. Do you really want to leave? Fan Qinjiao comforted him and said, this is the Hua family and the general's mansion. My grandfather has all been stripped of his official position. If we continue to stay here, we are afraid that we will make people criticized. It is better to retreat in order to advance and let Hua go first. The house is completely settled. People can only continue to exist. If people are gone, what is the use of this lifeless object? As long as the Hua family makes a comeback in the future, it will be home wherever it is. But where can we go without here? I have arrangements, mother, just follow me. Hua Yuelian knew that her Yuye's words made sense, so she didn't ask any more questions. Half an hour later, the few remaining servants of the Hua family came to the door. As the door of the mansion opened, I saw many people standing outside, watching eagerly. Given the Hua family's contribution to the country over the years, the common people would not add insult to injury, but when faced with the Hua family that had been beaten to the bottom, they would still be curious and even whisper. The servants of the Hua family were so stared at that they dared not go out. Hua Yuelian also squeezed Fan Qinjiao's hand. Fan Qinjiao showed a comforting smile. We didn't do anything wrong, why should we be afraid? She cannot yet decide whether the imperial power is right or wrong, but she believes that justice is in the heart of the people. Fan Qinjiao arranged with a calm face again, put the things on the carriage first. And Su, you accompany your mother to get on the carriage first. The others will follow behind the carriage. Remember to follow closely when leaving. Ning'an heard the young lady's instructions and quickly took action. Mama Su walked to Hua Yuelian's side and wanted to help the young lady get into the carriage first. But Hua Yuelian silently walked to Ning'an's side and packed things together. Her crescent moon can straighten her chest, so as a mother, she cannot be embarrassed. The servants at the door saw that their masters were not guilty, so their confidence naturally returned, and they almost rushed down the steps to get busy. When the people around him saw such a calm and upright Hua family, even their whispers disappeared. The journey from the general's mansion to the mansion given by the empress was not too far. When the servants of the Hua family followed them to the new mansion, they were all so surprised that they were speechless when they looked at the neat and spacious courtyard. Even Hua Yulian was surprised. How come there is such a mansion? Fan Qinjiao helped his mother through the door and said, "Mother has forgotten. Even if grandpa is stripped of his official position, I am still the head of the county. This mansion was given by the queen, so I can live here with peace of mind." This was not only heard by Hua Yuelian, but also by the servants behind him. It was only now that they remembered that their niece was the head of the county, which meant that in the future, the daughter-in-law would be the natural head of the Hua family. In this way, they all looked in awe even when they looked at their foreign lady. This mansion was exactly where Fan Qinjiao used to treat Bailey Fengming. She was familiar with the place, so it took little effort to arrange it. After her mother had arranged everything, she called everything in front of her. In addition to Grandma He, who followed her grandfather and grandmother out of the main city, some others ran away, leaving the housekeeper Chen Yi, Grandma He and a dozen servants who signed death contracts. Fan Qinjiao looked at Chen Yudao and said, "Calculate the names of these servants and which courtyard they were from." Chen Yi nodded, turned around and got busy. Su Yan was distressed that her little lady was so tired that she didn't even drink water. She quickly poured a cup of tea. Miss drinks tea first, but her throat is the main. Fan Qinjiao took the teacup and was about to drink it when he saw Ninghan running over panting. "Miss, there are people in Chuanhua Mansion making trouble outside. It seems that even the front door of Hua Mansion has been smashed." Fan Qinjiao put down the teacup, looked at Ninggan and said, "Go to Hua's house and see who is causing trouble." Ninggan nodded and hurried away again. Not long after, Chen Yi counted the servants and handed over the list. Fan Qinjiao took it and was looking at it when Ninggan ran back again. "Miss. Well, do you know who is causing trouble?" "It's Mrs. Do." Fan Qinjiao, who was looking at the list, frowned. Mrs. Su, who was standing nearby, quickly explained, "Mrs. Do is my eldest aunt's mother-in-law. Mrs. Do is the biological mother of the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei. She later remarried because of the death of Ling Wei's father. The person she is marrying now is the Do family in the main city, and her name has been changed to Mrs. Do. The master of the Do family had no children in his life, so Ling Wei naturally became the daughter of the Do family. Ling Wei has been very diligent in moving around with the Do family in recent years. I heard that the master of the Do family has always treated Ling Wei as his own daughter." Fan Qinjiao nodded again. "Ninggan, please continue." Ninggan was so angry when she thought of Mrs. Do's behavior just now. "Miss, you didn't see that Mrs. Do is simply unreasonable. She was sitting at the door of our Hua's house, crying and shouting. What did we say? The Hua family is not a human being, and even if they were defeated, they would drag the Do family into trouble. I just said, why did our Hua family drag them into trouble?" Unexpectedly, Mrs. Do rushed directly into the Hua family and smashed her up. They even knocked down several fruit trees in Hua's yard. Ninggan was silent as she talked. It wasn't that she didn't want to talk, but she was too angry to speak. Mrs. Do's speech was really unpleasant, and she was embarrassed to learn many words. Fan Qinjiao's eyes darkened when she heard these words. When she raised her head to look at Ninghan, her eyes turned completely cold. Been beaten, she reached out and lifted Ninggan's chin. The red and swollen half of her face was even more eye-catching in the sun. Ninggan bit her lip and said, "Miss, I'm useless." "It's not that you are useless, it's that you are not as shameless as her." Fan Qinjiao was smiling, but his eyes were so cold that they froze, Everyone else remained silent after the Hua family was defeated. On the contrary, his own people couldn't wait to step on them. Since Mrs. Do is shameless, then let's do it the shameless way. She would like to see if everyone in the Do family is as brave as Mrs. Do. Mother Su. The old slave is here. You go to the Do family now and ask the Do family's master to explain today's events clearly. By the way, ask the Do family if they want to see the Hua family dead and happy. There is no need to give him face. The Hua family doesn't have anything to do with him anyway. What do you expect from the Do family? It would be better if you talk about it. It is not only Madame Do who knows how to bite back, but she also knows how to do it. I understand, old slave, go now. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 107. Chapter 107 Cleaning up the house and eliminating spies. Fan Kinjao looked down at the list in his hand again, and then said, those who were in the Dafang courtyard before took a step forward. Several little maids came out with confused expressions. Fan Kinjao looked at them and asked again, how long have you been waiting in the courtyard of the big house? Be a slave for 3 years. Be a slave for 1 year. The slave also has 1 year. Fan Kinjao nodded, it won't take long. I think my aunt will treat you well, right? These words silenced the few maids. Chen Yi didn't quite understand, if Miss Kinjao is worried about their young age and instability, I will send them to do some chores. Fan Kinjao just smiled, for someone who is so capable and reliable in doing things, wouldn't it be unfair to send him to do miscellaneous tasks? Chen Yi. I just can't understand it at all. Fan Kinjao looked at the maids, and his voice became colder, I left Hua's house, and Do's family came to make trouble. How could it be such a coincidence? Which of you can handle today's affairs best? Stand up, if you wait for me to take action, you won't be so comfortable. Mrs. Do is also smart and knows that if she conflicts with the Hua family, she will not be able to deal with it. So he came here to strike first, and now everyone knows that the Hua family has failed. If Mrs. Do continues to make such a fuss, people who don't know may really think that the Hua family has failed her daughter over the years. Chen Yi didn't react until now. He looked at Miss Kinjao sitting next to him with indescribable admiration. It was just a word from Ning Han, but he thought about so much in a short period of time. This meticulousness, tisk. It's scary. The maids were silent and no one spoke. Fan Kinjao was also angry, let alone anxious. He just said to Chen Yuda, Steward Chen, pack up all their things. Several maids were shocked. Fan Kinjao took out a small porcelain bottle from the package beside him and smeared Ninggan's face slowly, since you are all loyal to my eldest sister-in-law, I am willing to give you a ride. The maids who were standing there just now were all kneeling on the ground in an instant. They had met Miss Kinjao several times since she returned to the Hua family, but as far as they knew, Miss Kinjao was just lucky enough to make some money by selling charcoal, and Miss Kinjao was also in the house on weekdays. Min Jiaowen stayed at home, and they naturally didn't care about such a person with little sense of existence. That's when Prince Rui brought people to Hua's house, but they all hid and didn't go out. Until now, when faced with the astonishing sense of oppression, they realized that Miss Kinjao was not as simple as they thought. One of the maids couldn't bear it and said, Miss Kinjao, yes, it's the news sent by Kui Dai to my eldest aunt. Another maid nodded in agreement, no, that's right, it's Kui Dai. They are all from the same yard. If it was really just a spanking and punishment, they would not say anything even if they endured the pain. But Miss Kinjao was too cruel and wanted to send all of them to the Do family. They are slaves of the Hua family. Even if the Do family really wants them, let alone the Do family, how will they have a good life? The maid named Quiddy was so flustered that her voice was about to jump out of her throat. She had a pale face and dared not speak. Fan Kinjao did not speak any more, but continued to treat the injuries on Ning'an's face. Chen Yi stood aside and didn't even dare to say anything. This was the first day that he knew that Miss Kinjao could be so terrifying. Fan Kinjao waited until he had finished dealing with Ning'an's face, then picked out a bottle from the pile of bottles in his package and handed it to Kui Dai. "Are you going to drink it yourself? Or should I drink it for you?" Quiddy suddenly rushed over, pulled the corner of Fan Kinjao's skirt and cried, "Miss Kinjao, I know that I am wrong, I really know that I am wrong." Fan Kinjao lowered his eyes quietly and looked at the pale Kui Dai. "Want to beg me to let you go?" Kui Dai nodded like garlic. Fan Kinjao's cold eyes were even colder. "You are from the big house, but you are also from the Hua family. You only remember how good the big house is to you, but have you ever thought about it? If there was no Hua family, you would not even be able to enter the big house. You don't even have the qualifications to live in the courtyard. Of course, the Hua family doesn't expect anything in return from you, but the Hua family, with me as the head, will never tolerate the existence of someone like you who cheats on others." Quiddy was so frightened that she lay at Fan Kinjao's feet and didn't even dare to cry. She really didn't expect Miss Kinjao to be so scary. If she had known earlier, she would never have acted like this. Fan Kinjao grabbed her chin and said, "It seems that you need me to help you drink." As soon as she finished speaking, Quiddy didn't even have time to struggle. She opened her jaw forcefully and poured the medicine powder in. Vomit. Quiddy didn't know what she had eaten, and instinctively lay on the ground retching. However, the medicinal powder melted immediately after entering the mouth. No matter how much she vomited, it had no effect at all. Soon, Quiddy felt her throat itching like a cat scratching her. She scratched hard. But no matter what, there is no way to stop the itching. Soon, she scratched her neck until it was bloody, and even her skin turned up. Seeing this, Fan Kinjao stood up, shook her skirt, looked at Ning'an and said, "Go and send her to Do's house. Just how Mrs. Do hit you in the face, you hit her back even harder." "Yes," Miss Ning'an nodded, dragging Kui Dai away who could not even speak. Chen Yi actually didn't feel anything pitiful when he looked at Quiddy's appearance. The kind of slave who sells out his mansion would be beaten to death if placed in another mansion. But Miss Kinjao just wanted to kill her throat. Fan Kinjao would never take Quiddy's life, and she would not kill them all in a fight with the Hua family's master and servant. Chen Yi thought about Nanny Su, who had already walked out for a long time, and said, "I don't know if Ning'an can catch up with Nanny Su." Fan Kinjao took a sip of tea and said, "There is no need to chase. All we need is to let Nanny Su and Ning'an go one by one. This way, one slap after another can be slapped on the face of the Do family." How could she not know what the Do family had planned? If the Do family could agree and discuss things, she would naturally not hold on to anything. But since the Do family has lost face in order to protect themselves, of course she will not agree with them. The servants who were still standing in a row looked at Miss Kinjao sitting on the stone bench, not in fear but in horror. Even without Miss Kinjao's personal instructions, they all know that they have to work hard in the future. After all, no one wants to become the second green butterfly. At this time, the Do family, who was being slapped, was also quite lively. Nanny Su stood in the main hall with her chest held out. Even though Master Do was sitting in front of her, she was not at all frightened. "My young lady has no other intention in letting me come this time. She just wants to ask Master Do." "Why do you let Do go so easily?" Madame went to Hua's house and cried and made noise. What did she mean? Did she really want to watch the Huas hang themselves and drown themselves in the river? Do Caochan turned blue with anger and even threw the teacup in his hand. "Bitch! What else can you say?" There was a sound of pop, and the teacup was shattered. Mrs. Do, who was acting in front of Hua's house just now, calmed down now. She stood aside with a pale face in fear. Her feet became weak for a while, and she did not kneel on the ground several times. With the Hua family in such a state, she certainly didn't want her daughter to suffer the same fate, so she just wanted to make a fuss first so that she could negotiate peace and divorce with the Hua family in the future. Who would have known that the Hua family would bite her back and kill someone? If someone in the Hua family really couldn't think about it because of this matter, wouldn't her Do family become the culprit? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 108. Chapter 108. One slap after another. After holding it in for a long time, Mrs. Do finally said, "I'm just afraid that the Hua family will drag down the Do family, sir." After hearing this, Aunt Sue smiled coldly and said without changing her expression, "The Holy Spirit clearly shows how you can do such a foolish thing." Mrs. Do said this because she suspected that the Holy Spirit is not doing things well, or because you have a guilty conscience in the Do family. Why are you afraid of being investigated? Mrs. Do is the mistress of the Do family after all, so she would be embarrassed to be scolded by an old slave. But before she could say anything, another thing hit her in front of her. Click. This time even the teapot came flying. Looking at Do Kauchen, who was sitting on the main seat, his face turned black to ashes. How could he not know that his wife was making such a fuss because she wanted to rely on public opinion to get her daughter to divorce the Hua family? In fact, with the current situation of the Hua family, he did not want his daughter or even the Do family to be involved again. But now the Hua family bites back. What can he do? Listen to what they just said, even the emperor has moved out. If his wife is allowed to speak so openly again, I am afraid that the Do family will be investigated by the government before the Hua family can clear up the relationship. Do Kauchen thought for a moment, then turned to look at Nanny Su. The Do family is also very sorry that the Hua family has ended up in such a bad situation, but I heard that my daughter's life in the Hua family was not satisfactory before. At that time, the Hua family was all, "If you are busy, my Do family will not bother you." Now that the Hua family is free, why not make an appointment for the current head of the Hua family to come to the Do family? As the saying goes, only by getting together and relaxing can you make money. Mother Su was so angry that she gritted her teeth when she heard this. What a master of Do's family, even if you speak to avoid it, it's just that you still want to push the responsibility to Huajia. Why the people of the Hua family are busy is simply a slander that the Hua family was once arrogant and arrogant. He also asked her young lady to come and talk to her at some time. What do the Do family think they are? Mrs. Do was obviously still kneeling on the ground, but the corners of her lips were secretly raised. The Hua family deserved to be thrown into Do's house without knowing whether to live or die. A boy hurriedly entered the door and said, "Master, someone from the Hua family is here again." Do Kauchen was stunned when he heard this, and Mrs. Do was also stunned. Just before the two of them came to their senses, they saw Ninghan dragging Kui Dai through the door. As soon as she saw Quiddy, the smile that Madame Do had just snickered at the corner of her mouth suddenly froze. Ninghan smiled coldly and pushed Quiddy to the ground. Quiddy's neck has been scratched until it is bloody, and it is extremely scary just looking at it from a distance. Do Kauchen, who had no idea, was the first to yell angrily, "What on earth do the Hua family want to do? If your Hua family dares to continue making trouble with such arrogance, I, the Do family, will report it to the official immediately." Ninghan saluted Mr. Do first, then stood up straight and said, "If Mr. Do wants to report to the official, please hurry up. It just so happens that our Hua family also wants to know who is so bold and bribed the slaves of my Hua family, betrayed the mansion to report the news." Hearing this, Do Kauchen looked at his wife, who was so guilty that she couldn't lift her head. How could he not be clear in his heart? Thinking about the slanderous words I just said about the Hua family, my old face hurt so much that I almost didn't push it away on the spot. He really didn't expect that his wife could even do such a thing. If word of this spread, would he still have the face? Ningan looked at Madame Doe and said, "My young lady said that since Quiddy is Madame Doe's person, there is no reason to stay in the Hua family. My young lady also said that if Madame Doe falls in love with me again, any slave from the Hua family can just come and ask for it without being so secretive. My Hua family is defeated, but a few slaves can still afford it." Mrs. Doe, who was slumped on the ground, was so angry that her blood rushed to the top of her head. However, looking at the green butterfly lying on the ground, she almost looked away in embarrassment. Such a person has gained all the stolen goods, and there is nothing she can do about it even if she is full of talk. Do Cauchen's heart was beating with anger, but he could only soften his tone on his face. It was just a joke. Now the Hua family is probably very busy, so how can I, the Do family, come forward to bother me? What are you talking about? What a joke! If the head of the Hua family came to visit at this time, wouldn't he be actively looking for trouble? Seeing that Do Cauchen had softened, Aunt Sue was too lazy to say any more nonsense, so she pulled Ningan and walked out of Do's house proudly. Do Cauchen, who was sitting on the main seat, looked livid and wanted to rush up and give Mrs. Do a slap in the face to relieve his hatred. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei hurriedly entered the door. She already knew everything from the servants, so she opened her mouth and said, "Dad, the Hua family agrees to divorce." Do Cauchen suppressed the anger in his heart and said, "Don't think about reconciliation for a while. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei just quit, why don't we make peace? Do you really want me to live a hard life with Xinying and the Hua family? Dad, please don't worry about this. I will go to the Hua family in person to ask for an explanation. Go." Do Cauchen quickly asked his servants to stop his daughter. "The current head of the Hua family is not someone you can mess with." The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei didn't believe it. "Is it worthy of that little Fan Qinjiao?" Do Cauchen was even more shocked after hearing this. He had never heard of the name Fan Qinjiao. He was appreciated by the emperor at a young age and was even made the county head. Originally, he really didn't pay attention to a little girl. But now it seems. It's just that he underestimated that girl. Fan Qinjiao didn't care what Do Cauchen thought of him. It would be better if he could think of her as a monster. While it was not completely dark yet, she asked Ningan and Aunt Sue to go out again, and sent news to several aunts respectively. If they wanted to come back, they would still have a place in this family. If they didn't want to when she comes back, she will find a way to reconcile them. It is true that they are the female relatives of the Hua family, but they are also innocent. There are too many things that need to be busy in the Hua family, and Fan Qinjiao has no time to spare for several days. The main city was not at peace either. King Rui, who had been going crazy in Prince Rui's mansion 3 days later, passed away. Emperor Yongchang has never had a deep relationship with his half-brother, and he doesn't show any signs of grief. He just went through the necessary process of finding someone to leave. On the second day after King Rui was buried, the news of Yuzhu's victory was finally posted on the imperial list. The whole city celebrated with joy and the people cheered. Emperor Yongchang was still aloof. Not only did he not reward the prince, but he also exempted the prince from accompanying him to the court to listen to politics. It was said that he wanted the prince to take a good rest. Faced with what Emperor Yongchang did, the ministers in the court were panicked. Because no one can guess the emperor's thoughts now. Since King Rui was driving to the west, Prince Xiaoqiu, the only son of King Rui, stood in the court hall for his father. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 109. Chapter 109, Clinging to the Hua family. The court today is not peaceful, and the civil and military officials are arguing endlessly about the Hua family. The Hua family was defeated, but in the eyes of some people, the Hua family's defeat was not complete enough, and the family was still being ransacked. Among them, the ones who made the most noise were officials from the 6th Department. After all, only they themselves knew how embarrassing they were by Fan Qinjiao's mouth last time in front of the palace gate. Guoyin came out first and said, "The third prince's injury has not healed," which shows what kind of mentality he had at that time. Although the Hua family has been punished for this matter, it is not enough at all. If the Hua family's wolf ambition cannot be eliminated soon, I'm afraid it will become a big hidden danger for me in Ziliang in the future. Hearing this, Zhou Chun and Wu Zhongtian naturally stepped forward to express their agreement. Unexpectedly, Du Ziming, one of the 6 films, rarely sang the opposite tune. Wei Chen does not agree with the confiscation of homes. As the Minister of the Ministry of Revenue, he knows how poor the national treasury is now. Because of this, he cherishes people who can bring money to the national treasury even more. I think back then, Fan Qinjiao single-handedly solved all the military expenses for the Jiangdu War. Even now, he is still thinking about Fan Qinjiao. You said you want to raid Hua's house, okay, just do it. But after the copying is completed, you can just use the money to fill in the military pay from now on. Zhou Chun frowned and said, "Master Du, what you said is wrong. You can't forget the Hua family's wolfish ambition just because of a small profit." Du Ziming spat in one gulp and sprayed it over, giving mother-in-law a stinky fart. Small profit from a petty expense? Then you should take out the money and show it to me. With your little salary, which is not as rich as sesame paste, if I let you pay for it once as military pay, I am afraid you will have to put all the coffins of your ancestors in it. The Hua family has collapsed in the court today, but the former aides of Hua Yaoding are still there. Led by Du Ziming, a merchant from the Ministry of Household Affairs, they also came out one after another to make comments, hoping to save the last bit of face of the Hua family and leave a way for the female family members of the Hua family to survive. Fan Zixia watched the verbal exchanges in the court and remained silent in a rare moment. It's not that he doesn't want to take advantage of this moment to step on Hua's family, but he is afraid that if this step is taken, he will be the next person to go crazy for no reason. At the critical moment, Crown Prince Xiaoqiu came out, "My father died in order to punish and eliminate evil in Ziliang. Even now, his body is still cold. If the Hua family doesn't copy it, how can my father rest in peace?" The king of Rui, who had always been supporting the Prince Rui's mansion, fell down. He was a man who had been living around waiting for death all year round. He didn't seek to make a name for himself in the court, but he wanted someone to protect him and do his best as before. And this person is the current concubine Yu. Of course, if he wants to get on concubine Yu's boat, he must first completely overturn the Hua family. This is the exchange given to him by concubine Yu, and it is also his only way out now. The eldest son of Xiaoqiu, who didn't care about his father's life or death, cared about his own life and death very much, so much so that when he talked about the emotional part, his eyes turned red and he spoke righteously. His eyes widened and he wanted to tear the Hua family to pieces with his own hands. Only then was he willing to give up. It can be said that he talks heartbroken words and is obsessed with eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. When I cried until my tears stopped flowing, I rolled my eyes and fainted. Facing the Crown Prince Xiaoqiu, who was twitching in the court and about to foam at the foam, the voices supporting the Hua family fell completely silent. After all, there are lessons learned from the Hua family, and no one wants to become the second Hua family. And Zhou Chun, who was sprayed by Du Ziming, the Minister of Household Affairs, once again led officials to confiscate his home. For a time, the court was completely biased towards the side of Prince Xiao. Emperor Yongchang looked at the chicken feathers on the ground in the court hall and left with a sullen expression. After retiring from the court, the Prince of Xiaoqiu was escorted out of the palace by the imperial physician, and the affairs of the court were spread throughout the palace. 5th Prince Bailey Lingyu has always been someone who can't sit still. As soon as he got the news, he came to the East Palace. Bailey Fengming was wearing a white robe and sitting behind the writing desk, holding a book in his long-sleeve fingers. The faint sunlight shines on his body along the window lattice, and the jade-like luster is so spotless. Seeing Bailey Lingyu enter the door, he calmly looked away and continued reading. His calmness was enviable. Bailey Lingyu sat down opposite him, stretched out his hand and knocked on the table in front of him. The only thing that's so lively outside is the gongs and drums, so you can still sit here safely. Bailey Fengming smiled slightly. Father is wary of me now. If I make even the slightest move, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to stand in the court again. Bailey Lingyu was surprised when he heard this. Then you can still laugh? Bailey Fengming asked calmly. What else can we do? Bailey Lingyu gritted her teeth angrily. Those old immortals in the court, such things as face do not exist in their heads, and they actually bit a little girl and wouldn't let go. I heard that Xiaoqiu the prince even threatened to go to the Hua family in person. If I were you, I would have beaten the Prince of Xiaoqiu to death with a stick. Bailey Fengming chuckled lightly. The person who bit Ayao to death was concubine Yu. What's the use of beating the Crown Prince of Xiaoqiu to death? The Crown Prince Xiaoqiu was just a fool waiting to die. He had never done anything outstanding in his whole life. How could he be so outspoken in the court in such a short period of time? Bailey Lingyu glanced at his imperial brother sadly, and suddenly didn't want to speak. Every time he had any news, the emperor always knew it first, and he knew it so thoroughly. Heart tired. Bailey Fengming put down the book in his hand and called Xiaoxian in. What happened last time can be investigated this time. Xiaoxian nodded, turned around and walked out the door. Bailey Lingyu was stunned. Who are you checking? Heshuo County Prince. Bailey Lingyu. Concubine Yu is plotting against your future daughter-in-law. Why is Prince Heshuo still lying on his back? Bailey Fengming slowly poured 2 cups of tea and pushed 1 cup to the opposite side. I heard from spies from the main city that Ayao has life-saving feelings for the princess of Heshuo County. So once Ayao knows about the goings-on in the court, the first person he goes to will definitely be the princess of Heshuo County. It just so happened that concubine Yu had always wanted to win over Prince Heshuo, but the news was kept too tight, so he was afraid of alerting the public. But now that someone has grabbed concubine Yu's mind, concubine Yu will naturally let go of Prince Heshuo. When the time comes for him and Ayao to work together, it will be difficult for Prince Heshuo to ignore the matter even if he wants to. Bailey Lingyu was dumbfounded when he heard this. Brother, please find time to ask the GUN to prescribe you some hair growth and nourishing medicines. So smart. I'm even worried that you'll die. Brother Imperial, you are kind to that girl, but have you ever thought about it? With her current status it is impossible for her to marry you, and she is not even qualified to be our royal daughter-in-law. To be honest, that girl, her mouth is a bit venomous, but he doesn't dislike her very much. Bailey Fengming's face that was relegated to immortals showed a rare wry smile. Even if she is qualified, she will not marry me. Bailey Lingyu was shocked again. Can you still be so calm after being rejected? Bailey Fengming picked up the teacup calmly. That's just her own idea. Bailey Lingyu. Brother, you are so persistent in pursuing me, I feel ashamed for you. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 110. Chapter 110. This queen is not simple. In the East Palace, 2 brothers who had grown up had a heart-to-heart talk, but they didn't know that this conversation had fallen into the ears of the queen. Empress Zhengzi stood at the door of the East Palace, holding the handkerchief tightly. The emperor's suspicion is getting more and more serious now. The Hua family originally merged with the Tao family's military doctors, and now there is Fan Qinjiao, who has the Midas touch. The emperor is afraid of the Hua family and wants to suppress it. No one can stop it. But Queen Zhengzi never expected that concubine Yu's hand would have been stretched out so long. King Rui managed to win over the crown prince of Xiaoqiu just after he died. It was really a good thing. Queen Zhen 11, who originally wanted to go in, turned around and walked out. Lily, go to the imperial palace and inquire about where the emperor plans to stay overnight. Lily hurriedly whispered, the queen, the noble lady, forgets things a lot. The emperor just sent someone to send a message in the morning, saying that he was coming to have dinner with the queen in the evening. Queen Zhen 11 smiled coldly, the sudden appearance of someone I haven't seen for a long time makes this palace inappropriate, but that's okay. You can prepare as I told you later. Don't worry, queen, I have told the kitchen to prepare the dishes that the emperor likes to eat. No need, go tell the kitchenette that you don't have to do anything tonight. Empress Zhen 11's heart became even colder when she thought about the face she hadn't seen for many days. Since the heart is not in Fenji Palace anyway, what's the use of the delicious food? It is not as good as direct vehicle to vehicle and gun to gun, which is actually simpler. Emperor Yongchang also knew that the third prince's injuries during this period of time had completely kept him in Yuya Palace. He didn't say it, but how could he not have feelings for Queen Zhengzi after being together for so many years? In this way, after finishing what he was doing, he got up and came to Fenji Palace. Unexpectedly, there was no smell of dishes when he entered the door, and there was no personal greeting from Queen Zhengzi. Instead, there were waves of suppressed cries drilling into his ears one after another. Emperor Yongchang frowned and stepped lightly onto the threshold. In the main hall, Queen Zhen 11's eyes were red, and she was talking to Lily next to her. The prince is really lazy. Now the affairs of the Hua family are enough to give the emperor a headache, but he is good. I want to ask his opinion, but he tells me that the emperor has made his own decision. Lily persuaded softly, the queen, please don't think so of His Highness the Crown Prince. His Highness the Crown Prince has been neither fighting nor grabbing since he was a child. How can this person's temperament change so easily? To put it bluntly, it's not disappointing, Queen Zhen 11 said, and she shed more tears. Emperor Yongchang stood at the door and listened. His tears of distress for the queen were true, but he felt relieved in his heart. He has trained the prince himself, and he knows better than anyone else what kind of ambition and ability he has, so he has always been proud of the prince since he was a big kid. But now, as he gets older and older, the princes gradually become restless. Although the credit for the Yuzhu incident this time is given to the third prince, there really is no such thing. He didn't believe the prince's handiwork at all. That's why he sensed the threat and suspended the prince. But now it seems that he is overthinking. After all, the queen was right. The prince had a peaceful mind and had no desires. How could he suddenly become so eager for him? Emperor Yongchang's mood improved, and his steps became much heavier. Lily looked at the person coming and was so frightened that she knelt on the ground and said, "Slave, please give your regards to the emperor." Emperor Yongchang waved his hand and motioned Lily to retreat. Empress Zhengzi was also a little panicked. She wiped her tears and was about to stand up, but Emperor Yongchang held her shoulders down. "I haven't seen you cry for many years." I made the emperor laugh. Emperor Yongchang sat next to Queen Zhengzi, held her hand and said, "Old married couple, what's so funny? I was originally thinking about whether you would complain about me asking the prince to suspend his court." Empress Zhen 11 hated that iron could not become steel. With his unfulfilled look, he will only be happy if the emperor stops him for the rest of his life. Emperor Yongchang felt more comfortable and calmed down. Recently, there has been a lot of trouble in the court over the confiscation of the Hua family. I am also unable to do what I can. After this period of time, I will let the prince come back. After all, he is the prince of the East Palace, and he will still be my successor in the future. He can give away his things at will, but he will never allow others to covet them, or even them with his own hands. Empress Zhen 11 held her handkerchief and wiped the corners of her eyes. She was no longer sad, but she was angry again. The emperor treats the Hua family so well, but Hua Yaoding's subordinates are so bold that they dare to be disrespectful to the third prince, even if it is unintentional. The mistake is deserved. If I go too far, the emperor should be the one who should have his house confiscated. Emperor Yongchang was stunned, but he didn't expect the queen's reaction to be so big. Even with the prince's incident just now, I have never seen her get so angry. In this way, Emperor Yongchang held Empress Zhengxi's hand tighter. I am actually worried. The Hua family committed the following offenses, but I have also punished them. Besides, if the Hua family does not copy, the one from the Hua family Fan Qinjiao will still replenish his military salary every year. The emperor is benevolent and kind, but how can he be worthy of someone like the Hua family? Queen Zhen 11 spoke with righteousness and disgust. It's just a little military pay. Even without her Fan Qinjiao, we can't fight in Ziliang, right? Emperor Yongchang. Although it is not serious, it is still quite serious. Especially when I think of the face of the Minister of the Ministry of Finance, who looks like his own mother has died when he mentions money. Emperor Yongchang didn't even want to go to court. Looking at Emperor Yongchang's thoughtful face, Queen Zhengxi knew that he was still profitable for that girl. It is disgusting to be profitable, but the worst thing is that it has no use value. I have a sense of discretion in court affairs. If you are not in good health, you should take more care of yourself. I hope you will accompany me until the end. The Queen's words just now reminded him of the importance of his copycat family. He may not care about the life and death of the Hua family, but he cannot really cut off his own money. Empress Zhengxi leaned on Emperor Yongchang's shoulder. Your Majesty, don't worry. Don't worry, I will definitely die earlier than you, and you won't be able to catch my shadow even if you are reincarnated. Emperor Yongchang nodded and sat with Queen Zhengxi for a while before getting up and going to the imperial study. After Emperor Yongchang's figure completely disappeared from Fenji Palace, the queen supported her body and even rubbed her shoulders in disgust. Lily, who came in, saw her and whispered, "The emperor still cares about the queen." Empress Zhen 11 smiled bitterly and shook her head. Even if she cares about it, she doesn't give it wholeheartedly, so she would rather not give it to me. I hope Fan Qinjiao is well now, so even if I really give up one day, the prince is also accompanied and taken care of. That girl is capable and loyal. She will never misjudge anyone. Lily was stunned for a moment in confusion, but didn't the queen just agree to ransack the house? Queen Zhen 11 sighed. The emperor is also undecided now. In this case, I want to sing the opposite. People are like this. The more things most people are not allowed to do, the more it should be done. Concubine, you can win over the Prince of Xiaoqiu, why can't she win over the emperor? Since we want to play, let's all come together. End of this chapter.